Emma Blake wiped the sweat from her forehead as she finished welding the last joint on the water recycling unit. The workshop aboard the colony ship New Horizon was always too hot, but it was the only place where she felt truly at peace. Tools hung neatly on the walls, and half-finished projects covered every available surface. At 19, Emma was the youngest engineer on the ship, but her work spoke louder than her age. Another masterpiece, Blake? Dan Cooper, the head engineer, stepped into the workshop. His gray hair was messy from a long day, but his eyes sparkled with approval as he examined her work. "Just fixing what breaks," Emma replied with a modest smile. She had a talent for making complex repairs look simple, combining different technologies in ways that shouldn't work, but somehow did. Dan chuckled. "The captain wants to see you. Something about the meeting with the lizard people today." Emma's stomach tightened. The Zephyrians weren't just lizard people. They were a proud warrior race that controlled the planet Kara 7 below them. For 3 months, the human colony ship had been orbiting their world, trying to negotiate permission to land and establish a settlement. So far, every meeting had ended in failure. The bridge of the New Horizon buzzed with quiet activity. Captain Lisa Morgan stood at the center, studying reports on her tablet. She was a stern woman in her 40s with short brown hair and eyes that missed nothing. When she saw Emma approach, she gestured toward the view screen showing the planet below. "We're heading down for another diplomatic meeting in 2 hours," Captain Morgan said. "I want you there." Emma blinked in surprise. "Me, Captain, I'm just an engineer. I don't know anything about diplomacy. That's exactly why I need you." The captain turned to face her fully. "These Zephyrians respect strength and craftsmanship. Maybe they'll respond better to someone who actually builds things instead of just talks about them." 2 hours later, Emma found herself in a shuttle descending toward Kara 7. The planet's surface was harsh and rocky, with towering red cliffs and deep valleys. The meeting place was a flat area between 2 canyons, marked by tall stone pillars that the Zephyrians had carved with their clan symbols. The shuttle landed with a soft thud, and Emma followed Captain Morgan and the diplomatic team outside. The air was thin but breathable, with a metallic taste that made her nose wrinkle. In the distance, she could see the Zephyrians approaching. They were impressive beings, standing nearly 8 feet tall with thick, scaled skin that ranged from deep green to bronze. Their heads were elongated, with sharp teeth and bright yellow eyes. Each one wore elaborate armor decorated with clan markings, and they moved with the fluid grace of natural predators. Leading them was Warlord Thaxus of the Thornscale clan, a massive Zephyrian with scars crossing his chest and arms. His armor gleamed in the afternoon sun, and his presence commanded immediate attention. Behind him walked a dozen other warriors, all looking equally formidable. The meeting began like all the others. Captain Morgan spoke about trade agreements and mutual benefits. The Zephyrians listened politely but showed little interest. Emma could see the frustration building on both sides. These negotiations were going nowhere. But then something caught Emma's attention. Behind the group of adult Zephyrians, partially hidden by their larger forms, she glimpsed a much smaller figure. While the adults talked, Emma let her eyes wander until she could see the little one clearly. It was a Zephyrian cub, probably no more than 10 years old by human standards. But where the adult Zephyrians were massive and powerful, this youngster was small and frail. His scales were a dull gray-green instead of the vibrant colors of the adults, and his armor looked too big for his thin frame. Most telling of all, the other Zephyrians completely ignored him. Emma watched as the cub tried to move closer to hear the conversation, only to be pushed aside by a larger warrior who didn't even seem to notice him. The little one stumbled but quickly regained his balance, his bright eyes fixed on the humans with obvious curiosity. When one of the adult Zephyrians spoke harshly in their own language, the cub immediately moved further back, his head lowered in submission. The meeting continued for another hour, but Emma found herself watching the cub more than listening to the negotiations. She noticed how he examined the human shuttle with intelligent interest, how his eyes tracked their movements and technology. She also noticed how completely alone he seemed, even surrounded by his own people. When the diplomatic session finally ended with the usual polite refusals, Emma made a decision that would change everything. Instead of following the others back to the shuttle, she approached Warlord Thaxus. "Excuse me," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "The young one behind you, what's his name?" Thaxus looked surprised that she had even noticed the cub. His yellow eyes narrowed slightly. "That is Crix. He is..." Of little importance. He seems very interested in our technology, Emma continued, glancing at the youngster who was now staring at her with wide eyes. In my culture, curiosity is a sign of intelligence. Intelligence without strength is useless among the Zephyrians, Thaxus replied coldly. Crix was born weak. He will remain weak. Emma felt a familiar fire ignite in her chest, the same feeling she got when someone told her a machine couldn't be fixed or an idea wouldn't work. Maybe he just needs the right tools, she said quietly. The warlord's expression hardened. You know nothing of our ways, human. You're right, Emma admitted. But I know something about making the impossible possible. That evening, back aboard the New Horizon, Emma couldn't get the image of the lonely cub out of her mind. She found Captain Morgan in her ready room reviewing the failed negotiations. Captain, I want to try something different, Emma said. Different how? Captain Morgan looked up from her reports. Let me build something for that cub. Crix. Something that might help him. The captain frowned. Blake, we're trying to negotiate with an entire civilization here, not play charity with their children. Sometimes the smallest gesture makes the biggest difference, Emma insisted. Give me 2 weeks. If it doesn't work, we haven't lost anything except some spare materials. Captain Morgan studied the young engineer's determined face. Emma had never asked for anything like this before, and her technical innovations had saved the ship more than once during their long journey from Earth. 2 weeks? The captain finally agreed. But this is your project, Blake. Don't expect help if it goes wrong. Emma smiled for the first time that day. Thank you, Captain. I won't let you down. As she headed back to her workshop, Emma's mind was already racing with possibilities. She had seen something in that young Zephyrian's eyes. A spark of intelligence and hope that reminded her of herself when she was younger, and everyone told her she was too small, too young, too inexperienced to make a difference. Maybe Crix was born weak by Zephyrian standards, but Emma Blake had built her entire career on proving that the right combination of creativity, determination, and technology could overcome any limitation. Now she had 2 weeks to prove it again, not just for herself, but for a lonely alien cub who deserved a chance to be more than what others expected of him. Emma spent the first 3 days doing something she had never done before, studying instead of building. The ship's computer contained detailed scans of Zephyrian physiology from their previous encounters, and she absorbed every piece of information she could find. Their bone structure was denser than humans but had natural weak points. Their muscles were powerful, but required specific angles for maximum efficiency. Most importantly, their scales could conduct small electrical currents, which opened up interesting possibilities. You're going to burn out your brain if you keep this up, Jake Martinez said, setting a cup of coffee next to Emma's workstation. Jake was her closest friend on the ship, a communications officer who often visited her workshop when his shift ended. I'm fine, Emma muttered, not looking up from the anatomical diagrams on her screen. Did you know that Zephyrian scales grow in a specific pattern that creates natural armor joints? If you design something to work with that pattern instead of against it, Emma. Jake sat down across from her. What are you really doing here? This isn't just about helping some alien kid, is it? Emma finally looked up. Her friend's dark eyes showed genuine concern. When I was 8, I was the smallest kid in my class. Everyone said I was too weak to do anything important. My dad spent hours teaching me how to use tools, showing me that being small didn't mean being helpless. And now you see yourself in this Crix? Maybe, Emma turned back to her screen. Or maybe I just think everyone deserves a chance to prove what they can do. Jake squeezed her shoulder gently. Just don't forget to sleep, okay? By the end of the first week, Emma had a complete understanding of Zephyrian biology and had begun designing her most ambitious project yet. The armor wouldn't just protect Crix, it would enhance his natural abilities while compensating for his physical weaknesses. The design process was unlike anything she had attempted before. Human engineering focused on efficiency and function, but Zephyrian culture valued beauty and symbolism. Her armor needed to satisfy both requirements. She spent hours studying traditional Zephyrian armor patterns, incorporating their flowing lines and ceremonial elements into her technical drawings. Dr. Amy Stevens, the ship's xenobiologist, found Emma in her workshop on the 8th day. Amy was a thoughtful woman in her 30s who had spent her career studying alien life forms, I heard you were working on something for our scaly friends, Amy said, examining the armor components Emma had begun fabricating. It's for one specific Zephyrian, Emma corrected. The weak one from the last meeting. Amy picked up one of the armor plates, feeling its weight and examining its construction. This is incredible work. But can I ask you something? Do you understand what weakness means in Zephyrian society? Emma paused her welding. Thaxis said weak individuals are unimportant. It's worse than that, Amy explained gently. In traditional Zephyrian clans, cubs who can't prove their strength by adolescence are abandoned, left to survive on their own or die trying. If this Crix is still with his clan, it means he's living on borrowed time. Emma felt her stomach drop. How long does he have? Hard to say, but probably not much longer. Amy set the armor plate down carefully. What you're doing here, it's either going to save his life or get him killed faster. Then I better make sure it saves his life. The second week became a blur of 18-hour workdays. Emma barely left her workshop, surviving on coffee and the occasional meal that Jake forced her to eat. The armor began taking shape piece by piece. The chest plate was the foundation, a lightweight composite of human polymers and Zephyrian metal alloys she had salvaged from crashed shuttles on previous diplomatic missions. Inside the chest piece, she installed a microreactor that would power the suit's enhanced systems. The arm and leg sections contained microservos that would multiply the wearer's strength without overwhelming their natural movements. Emma programmed the servos to learn from the user's motion patterns, becoming more efficient over time. But the most innovative feature was the scale integration system. Instead of covering Crix's natural scales, the armor would bond with them, using his body's own electrical conductivity to create a feedback loop that would enhance his reflexes and reaction time. You haven't slept in 36 hours, Dan Cooper observed, finding Emma hunched over the helmet components at 3 a.m. Almost done, she mumbled, carefully installing the heads-up display system that would give Crix tactical information during combat. Blake, you're going to collapse. Dan's voice was stern but worried. This project won't help anyone if you kill yourself building it. Emma looked up at her mentor, her eyes red from exhaustion and welding sparks. Dan, what if this doesn't work? What if I've spent 2 weeks building something that just gets him laughed at or worse? Dan sat down beside her, his weathered hands gentle as he examined her work.
You know what I see here?
The best engineering I've encountered in 30 years of space travel. This armor isn't just functional, it's art, and more than that, it's hope. But what if, Emma, Dan interrupted softly, I've watched you fix things that other engineers said were impossible. You've got instincts that can't be taught, and creativity that comes from caring about your work. If anyone can build something that changes a life, it's you. Emma felt tears threatening to spill over. The exhaustion, the pressure, and the weight of Crix's uncertain future suddenly seemed overwhelming. Get some sleep, Dan continued. I'll finish the final calibrations. Tomorrow we'll test this masterpiece. The next morning, Emma stood in the testing bay with the completed armor displayed on a support frame. It was beautiful in a way that surprised her. The flowing lines she had copied from traditional Zephyrian designs blended seamlessly with the functional human components. The metal had a subtle blue-green tint that would complement Crix's natural coloring. Captain Morgan arrived with Dr. Stevens and several other senior officers. They walked around the armor slowly, examining every detail. How much did this cost us in materials? The captain asked. Less than what we spend on one diplomatic dinner, Emma replied. I used mostly salvaged materials and spare parts. And it will actually work? Emma took a deep breath. The simulations are perfect. The armor will increase the wearer's strength by roughly 300%, improve reaction time by 40%, and provide protection equivalent to traditional Zephyrian battle armor. But there's only one way to know for sure, by testing it on an alien child, Captain Morgan said dryly. By giving an alien child a chance to prove himself, Emma corrected. The captain studied Emma's determined face for a long moment. Contact Warlord Thaxis. Tell him we want to arrange a private meeting to demonstrate some new technology. Don't mention the boy. As the others filed out of the testing bay, Emma remained behind with her creation. In 3 days, she would find out if 2 weeks of sleepless nights and desperate hope could change the fate of one lonely alien cub. She touched the armor's chest plate gently, whispering a prayer to whatever forces govern the universe. Please let this work. she said quietly. He deserves a chance. The armor gleamed silently in the artificial light, ready to transform a weak cub into something the Zephyrian clans had never seen before. A fusion of human ingenuity and alien potential, powered by the simple belief that everyone deserved the chance to be strong. The meeting took place in a smaller canyon north of the usual diplomatic site. Emma's hands trembled slightly as she carried the armor case down the shuttle's ramp. She had barely slept the night before, running through every possible scenario in her mind. Some ended well, others did not. Warlord Thaxus waited with only 3 other warriors instead of his usual entourage. His scarred face showed curiosity mixed with suspicion as he watched the humans approach. Behind him, almost invisible in the shadow of the larger Zephyrians, stood Crix. The young cub looked even smaller than Emma remembered. His oversized armor hung loosely on his thin frame, and his gray-green scales seemed dull compared to the vibrant colors of the adults. But his bright yellow eyes tracked every movement the humans made, and Emma could see the sharp intelligence burning behind them. "You said you had new technology to demonstrate," Thaxus said without preamble. His voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. "I do," Emma replied, setting the armor case down carefully. "But first I need to ask Crix a question." The warlord's eyes narrowed. "The whelp, why?" "Because the technology is for him." A heavy silence fell over the canyon. The adult Zephyrians exchanged glances that Emma couldn't read, while Crix stared at her with an expression of complete shock. No adult had ever addressed him directly during these meetings. "You waste our time with games," one of the warriors growled. "No games," Emma said firmly. She looked directly at Crix, who seemed to shrink under the attention. "Crix, do you want to be strong?" The cub glanced nervously at Warlord Thaxus, then back at Emma. His voice was barely a whisper when he spoke. "Yes. Are you willing to try something that has never been done before?" This time Crix's answer came quicker with more conviction. "Yes." Emma opened the armor case. The specially designed battlesuit gleamed in the afternoon sun, its blue-green metal reflecting the canyon walls. The Zephyrians stared in silence, clearly recognizing the traditional design elements Emma had incorporated while also seeing something entirely new. "This armor was built specifically for you," Emma told Crix. "It will make you faster and stronger, but it won't make you someone different. You'll still be you, just the best version of yourself." Warlord Thaxus stepped forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over the armor case. "This is mockery. You offer artificial strength to one who was born weak." "I offer tools to someone who deserves a chance," Emma replied without backing down. "In my culture, we believe that intelligence and courage matter more than the circumstances of birth." "Your culture is not ours," Thaxus said coldly. "Among the Zephyrians, weakness is weakness. It cannot be hidden behind alien machines. Then let him prove you wrong." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Emma realized she had just implied that a Zephyrian warlord could be mistaken about something fundamental to his culture. Jake Martinez, standing behind her, made a small noise that might have been a prayer, but Crix surprised everyone. The young cub stepped forward, his chin raised in a display of defiance that Emma had never seen from him before. "I want to try," he said, his voice stronger now. "If I fail, nothing changes. But if I succeed—" "You will not succeed," Thaxus interrupted. "But very well. Let us see how quickly this human foolishness fails." Emma helped Crix into the armor piece by piece. The scale integration system activated as soon as the first component touched his skin, sending gentle electrical pulses through his natural scales. His eyes widened in surprise as the armor began syncing with his nervous system. "How does it feel?" Emma asked quietly as she secured the chest plate. "Strange," Crix admitted, "but also right, like it belongs." The transformation was remarkable to watch. As each piece of armor locked into place, Crix seemed to grow larger and more confident. The servos in the arms and legs adjusted to his proportions, while the heads-up display in his helmet began feeding him tactical information about his surroundings. When the last component was secured, Crix stood before them completely changed. The armor had added nearly a foot to his height and given him the presence of a true warrior. More importantly, he carried himself differently, his back straight, his head high, his movements confident and fluid. "Try walking," Emma instructed. Crix took a tentative step, then another. The armor's systems learned from each movement, adjusting their support to match his natural gait. Within minutes, he was moving with the grace of a born warrior. Now try lifting that rock. Emma pointed to a boulder that would normally require 2 adult Zephyrians to move. Crix approached the boulder cautiously. When he gripped it, the armor's strength enhancers activated automatically. He lifted the massive stone over his head as easily as if it weighed nothing. The watching Zephyrians hissed in amazement. But Warlord Thaxus was not impressed. "Mechanical tricks," he sneered. "Remove the armor and he is still the same weak whelp he always was." "The armor doesn't make him strong," Emma said carefully. "It lets him be as strong as he was meant to be." Pretty words. But words mean nothing among warriors. Thaxus's yellow eyes gleamed with something that might have been cruelty. "If you truly believe this gift has value, then prove it." "How?" "Single combat. Your creation against a true Zephyrian warrior." Emma's blood turned to ice. She had hoped for acceptance, maybe even gratitude. She had not expected a challenge that could get Crix killed. "He's just a child," she protested. "He is a Zephyrian," Thaxus replied. "Age matters less than strength. If your armor truly makes him strong, then he can prove it. If not..." The warlord shrugged, leaving the threat unfinished. Emma looked at Crix, searching for any sign of fear. Instead, she saw something that took her breath away: determination. For the first time in his young life, someone had given him the tools to fight back against a world that had written him off as worthless. "I accept," Crix said before Emma could speak. His voice resonated through the armor's vocal enhancers, giving it a depth and authority that commanded attention. "Crix, no," Emma started, but the young Zephyrian turned to face her. "Emma Blake," he said formally, using her full name for the first time. "You have given me a gift beyond measure." "Allow me to honor that gift." Thaxus smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. "Very well. Tomorrow at sunset, the trial will take place in the sacred fighting pit. All clans will witness either the birth of a new warrior or the death of a pretender." As the Zephyrians prepared to leave, Crix approached Emma one last time. The armor made him tall enough to look her in the eyes. "Thank you," he said quietly. "Whatever happens tomorrow, you have given me something I never had before." "What's that?" Emma asked. "Hope." That night, Emma couldn't eat or sleep. She sat in her workshop, making last-minute adjustments to the armor systems and trying not to think about all the ways tomorrow could go wrong. Jake found her there at midnight, staring at diagnostic readouts. "You know this isn't your fault, right?" he said gently. "You were trying to help." "If he dies tomorrow, it absolutely is my fault," Emma replied without looking up. "I gave him the confidence to fight, but what if the armor isn't enough?" "Then he'll die as a warrior instead of living as an outcast," Jake said. "Maybe that's what he wanted all along." Emma finally looked at her friend. "Is it wrong to want more for him than that?" "No," Jake said softly. "It's human." Outside the ship's windows, the alien sun was setting over Kara 7. Tomorrow would bring the trial that would determine not just Crix's fate, but possibly the future of human-Zephyrian relations. Emma had built the most advanced piece of technology in her career, but she wondered if it would be enough to overcome centuries of alien tradition and prejudice. In the distance, she could see lights flickering in the Zephyrian settlements as word of tomorrow's combat spread. Soon warriors from multiple clans would gather to witness something unprecedented, a weak cub challenging the natural order of their society. Emma closed her eyes and made a promise to herself. If Crix fell tomorrow, she would make sure his sacrifice meant something. She would find a way to honor the courage he had shown by believing in her gift, but first she had to believe in it herself. The sacred fighting pit of the Thornscale clan was carved directly into the living rock of the canyon floor. Ancient symbols covered the walls, telling stories of legendary battles fought by warriors whose names had become legend. Emma had seen pictures of similar arenas, but standing at the edge of the pit as hundreds of Zephyrians gathered around them made her realize how small and fragile humans truly were in this alien world. The sun hung low in the purple sky, casting long shadows across the assembled crowd. Warriors from at least 6 different clans had come to witness the trial. Their scales gleamed in colors ranging from deep emerald to bright copper, and their armor clanked softly as they moved to find the best viewing positions. Emma stood near the pit's edge with Captain Morgan and Dr. Stevens, trying to look confident while her heart hammered against her ribs. Across the arena, Crix waited in his gifted armor, testing its systems one final time. Even at this distance, she could see how the suit had transformed him from a weak outcast into something that at least looked like a true warrior. "The challenger approaches," announced Warlord Thaxus, his voice carrying easily across the amphitheater. "Zarth of the Bloodclaw clan has volunteered to test the worthiness of this artificial strength." Emma's stomach sank as she got her first look at Crix's opponent. Zarth was everything a young Zephyrian warrior should be. Tall, powerfully built, with brilliant red scales that marked him as a member of one of the most aggressive clans. His traditional armor was decorated with the teeth and claws of dangerous predators, trophies from his hunting expeditions. Most intimidating of all, he moved with the fluid confidence of someone who had never lost a fight. "This is madness," Dr. Stevens whispered. "That warrior has probably been training since he could walk. Crix has had the armor for less than a day." "Emma designed it well," Captain Morgan replied, but her voice carried doubt. "The strength enhancement should level the field." "Should," Emma repeated quietly. She activated her remote interface, a small device that would let her monitor the armor's performance and make minor adjustments during the fight. It was the only assistance she was allowed to provide. Warlord Thaxus raised his arms and the crowd fell silent. "Let the trial begin. May the strongest warrior prove their worth." Both fighters descended into the pit via stone ramps carved into opposite walls. The arena floor was roughly circular, maybe 50 feet across, with sand covering the ancient stone. Weapon racks lined the walls, offering traditional Zephyrian combat tools to any warrior brave enough to approach them during battle. Crix moved to the center of the pit, his armor systems automatically scanning his surroundings and highlighting potential tactical advantages in his helmet display. Emma watched his biometric readings on her interface. Elevated heart rate, but steady. The kid was nervous, but not panicked. Zarth entered from the opposite side, drawing a curved blade from his belt and spinning it casually in his grip. He was showing off, Emma realized, demonstrating his skill to intimidate his opponent. It was a psychological tactic as much as a physical one. "You fight well for one so small," Zarth called across the arena, his voice dripping with mock respect. "Perhaps when I defeat you, the human who made your pretty costume will build me one as well." The crowd laughed at the insult, but Crix didn't respond. Instead, he drew his own weapon, a traditional Zephyrian warhammer that the armor's strength enhancement allowed him to wield one-handed. Emma had suggested the hammer specifically because it would maximize the impact of the suit's power amplification. The two warriors circled each other slowly, looking for openings. Emma could see Zarth's confusion as he studied his opponent. Crix's movements were different from what the experienced fighter expected. More fluid, more confident than any weak cub should possess. Zarth struck first, lunging forward with his blade aimed at Crix's chest. But the armor's reaction enhancement kicked in, allowing Crix to dodge faster than his natural reflexes should have permitted. The curved sword passed harmlessly through empty air as Crix sidestepped and brought his hammer around in a wide arc. The weapon caught Zarth in the ribs, sending him stumbling backward. The crowd gasped in surprise. Whatever they had expected from this fight, it wasn't the weak cub landing the first solid hit. "Lucky," Zarth snarled, but Emma could see uncertainty in his eyes now. He had underestimated his opponent, and that mistake had already cost him. The fight continued with increasing intensity. Zarth was skilled and experienced, but Crix had advantages the older warrior couldn't match. The armor's tactical system highlighted weak points in his opponent's defenses, while the strength enhancement let him block attacks that should have overpowered his smaller frame. But experience began to tell as the battle wore on. Zarth started adapting to Crix's enhanced abilities, using feints and misdirection to work around the armor's advantages. A clever combination attack got through Crix's guard, and the curved blade scraped along his left arm, scoring the armor's surface. Emma's interface lit up with warning messages. The arm servos had taken damage from the impact, reducing their efficiency by 15%. She quickly rerouted power from non-essential systems to compensate, but she knew she could only make so many emergency repairs remotely. The crowd was on its feet now, cheering for both warriors as they traded increasingly desperate attacks. Emma could see fatigue setting in on both fighters, but Zarth's superior conditioning was starting to show. Crix was breathing hard, his movements becoming slightly less precise. Then Zarth made a mistake born of overconfidence. Seeing his opponent tiring, he pressed forward aggressively, abandoning defense for an all-out assault. His blade whistled through the air in a series of lightning-fast strikes that should have overwhelmed any defender. But Crix didn't try to block them all. Instead, he did something that surprised everyone. He let one of the attacks hit him. Zarth's blade struck the chest plate of the armor dead center, exactly where Emma had installed the heaviest protection. The weapon bounced off harmlessly while Crix grabbed his opponent's extended sword arm. The armor's strength enhancement did the rest. Crix lifted Zarth off his feet and threw him across the arena like a toy. The experienced warrior hit the stone wall hard enough to crack the ancient rock, then slumped to the ground, his weapon falling from nerveless fingers. For a moment, absolute silence reigned in the amphitheater. Then Crix raised his hammer high, and the crowd erupted in a mixture of cheers and shocked disbelief. The weak cub had done the impossible. He had defeated a proven warrior in single combat. Emma felt tears streaming down her face as she watched Crix stand victorious in the center of the arena. Her armor had worked perfectly, but more than that, Crix himself had shown courage and intelligence that no mechanical enhancement could provide. He had earned this victory through his own determination as much as through her technology. Warlord Thaxus descended into the pit, his massive frame dwarfing both younger fighters. Zarth was helped to his feet by clan medics, bruised and battered but alive. The defeated warrior looked at Crix with something that might have been respect. "I have never seen armor like this," Zarth admitted grudgingly. "It fights like a living thing responding to its wearer's will." "The armor is remarkable," Thaxus agreed, running his clawed fingers along the scratched but intact surface. "But the armor did not win this fight alone. The one who wears it showed the heart of a true warrior." He turned to address the crowd, his voice carrying to every corner of the amphitheater. "Let all clans witness. The one called Crix has proven his strength in honorable combat. He is weak no longer." The crowd roared its approval, but Emma barely heard them. She was focused on Crix, who had removed his helmet and was looking directly at her. Even from across the arena, she could see the tears of joy and gratitude in his bright yellow eyes. He had been given a chance to prove himself, and he had taken it. The weak cub was dead. In his place stood a warrior who would never again have to apologize for his existence. But this was only the beginning. Emma could see the calculating looks on the faces of the clan leaders, the whispered conversations already starting among the warriors. What she had created for one lonely outcast was about to change everything for both their species. The trial was over, but the real test was just beginning. The ceremony began at dawn 3 days after the trial. Emma had never seen so many Zephyrians gathered in one place. Warriors from dozens of clans filled the Great Canyon where their first diplomatic meetings had taken place. Banners displaying clan symbols fluttered in the morning breeze, and the air hummed with anticipation. Emma stood beside Captain Morgan, wearing her cleanest jumpsuit and trying not to fidget under the intense stares of hundreds of alien warriors. Word of Crix's victory had spread across the planet like wildfire, and every clan wanted to see the human who had created such impossible armor. "I still can't believe this is happening," Jake Martinez whispered from beside her. He had been granted permission to attend as Emma's friend and witness, though he looked as nervous as she felt. "Makes two of us," Emma replied quietly. Since the trial, everything had moved with bewildering speed. Warlord Thaxus had requested formal meetings with the human delegation. Clan leaders had arrived from across the continent, and Crix had become something of a celebrity among his people. The young Zephyrian approached them now, still wearing the armor that had transformed his life. The past 3 days had changed him in ways that went beyond the mechanical enhancements. He carried himself with genuine confidence now, and other Zephyrians actually listened when he spoke. Most remarkably, he had been formally adopted into Warlord Thaxus's family as an honored son. "Emma Blake," Crix said formally, though his bright yellow eyes sparkled with warmth. "The ceremony is about to begin. Warlord Thaxus wants to make sure you understand what is happening." "I'm still not entirely clear on the details," Emma admitted. "Your people's traditions are complex." Crix nodded seriously. "What you did for me created something called a life debt. In our culture, when someone saves a clan member's life and honor, that debt can only be repaid through absolute loyalty. But this goes beyond a simple debt." "How so?" "You didn't just save my life. You proved that our understanding of strength was incomplete. The clan elders have been debating for 3 days about what this means." Crix paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "They have concluded that you possess a form of wisdom that our people need." Before Emma could ask what that meant, A deep horn sounded across the canyon. The gathered Zephyrians fell silent and turned toward a raised platform carved into the canyon wall. Warlord Thaxus stood at its center, wearing ceremonial armor that gleamed like liquid gold in the morning sun. Warriors of all clans. His voice boomed across the amphitheater without any technological enhancement. We gather to witness something that has never happened in all our recorded history. A being from another world has proven herself worthy of the highest honor our people can bestow. Emma felt her heart begin to race. She had expected some kind of thanks, maybe a trade agreement. But Thaxus was speaking as if something much larger was about to happen. Emma Blake of the humans, Thaxus continued, his yellow eyes finding her in the crowd. Step forward and receive the judgment of the clans. Emma walked slowly toward the platform, acutely aware that thousands of alien eyes were tracking her every movement. The platform was accessible by a ramp carved into the stone, and she climbed it with as much dignity as she could manage. At the top, she found herself surrounded by more than 20 clan leaders, each representing thousands of warriors. Their armor and scales displayed every color she had seen among the Zephyrians, and their combined presence was overwhelming. Emma Blake, Thaxus said when she reached the center of the platform. 3 days ago, you gave our weakest member the tools to prove his strength. In doing so, you challenged everything we believed about power and worth. Emma's mouth was dry, but she managed to speak. I only wanted to help Crix find his potential. And in helping him, you revealed wisdom that our people had forgotten. Another clan leader stepped forward, an elderly female with silver scales and kind eyes. I am Elder Cythera of the Moonscale clan. For generations, we have cast aside our weak, believing them worthless. You showed us that weakness can become strength with the right guidance. What you created is more than armor, added a third leader, this one young and fierce-looking. It is hope made manifest, the hope that any of us can become more than what we were born to be. Warlord Thaxus raised his arms, and every Zephyrian in the canyon dropped to one knee in unison. The sight was breathtaking, thousands of proud warriors kneeling in perfect synchronization. Emma Blake, Thaxus proclaimed, his voice carrying to every corner of the gathering. By your wisdom and skill you have earned something no outsider has ever received. The Thornscale clan, in full assembly, swears the oath of eternal loyalty to you and your people. Emma stared in shock as the massive Zephyrian leader knelt before her. I don't understand. What does that mean? It means, said Elder Cythera, also kneeling, that from this day forward, the Thornscale clan considers itself bound to the humans by ties of blood and honor. Your enemies are our enemies. Your friends are our friends. Your struggles become our struggles. One by one, other clan leaders began speaking similar words. The Moonscale clan, the Iron Ridge clan, the Stormclaw clan. Each pledge brought more warriors to their knees until the entire canyon was filled with kneeling Zephyrians. This is madness, Emma said, though quietly enough that only the platform leaders could hear her. I built one suit of armor for one person. This is too much, is it? Crix had climbed onto the platform and now stood beside her. You could have ignored me that first day. You could have decided I wasn't worth your time. Instead, you saw potential where others saw only weakness. That is not engineering, Emma Blake. That is leadership. Warlord Thaxus stood and the gathered clans rose with him. There is more, he announced. The clans have voted to establish a new position in our society, the Forge Master, one who creates strength where none existed before. He gestured to the armor Crix wore. This is only the beginning. Our young warriors, our outcasts, are forgotten. All of them could benefit from your wisdom. In return, we offer our loyalty, our protection, and our partnership in building a future neither of our species could achieve alone. Emma looked out over the sea of expectant faces and felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. What had started as a simple act of kindness for one lonely cub had somehow grown into something that would change the fate of 2 entire civilizations. I accept, she said finally, her voice stronger than she felt. But I have conditions. A murmur rippled through the crowd, but Thaxus nodded approvingly. A true leader always has terms. Speak them. First, this partnership must be built on equality, not loyalty. Humans and Zephyrians working together as equals. Agreed. Second, no Zephyrian will ever again be cast aside for being weak. Everyone deserves the chance to find their strength. It shall be so. Third, Emma looked directly at Crix. I want to establish an academy. A place where young humans and Zephyrians can learn together, sharing knowledge and building bridges between our cultures. Crix's eyes brightened with excitement. The Forge Academy, he said immediately, where we learn that strength comes in many forms. The Forge Academy, Thaxis repeated, testing the words. Yes, this is wisdom. The ceremony continued for another hour, with formal declarations, ritual exchanges of gifts, and enough pomp to make Emma's head spin. But through it all, she kept thinking about a small, gray-scaled cub who had been ignored by his own people until someone decided he deserved better. Later, as the crowds began to disperse and the clan leaders made plans for the future, Emma found herself standing at the edge of the canyon with Crix. The young Zephyrian had removed his helmet, and his natural scales caught the afternoon light. Do you ever regret it? Emma asked.
Taking the risk to fight Zarth.
Crix considered the question seriously. Never. Even if I had lost, at least I would have fallen as a warrior rather than lived as nothing. He turned to look at her. But may I ask you something? Of course. Why? Why risk so much for someone you barely knew? Emma smiled, remembering her father's patient lessons in their garage workshop back on Earth. Because everyone deserves the chance to discover what they're capable of. You just needed the right tools. And now? Emma looked out over the Zephyrian settlements sprawling across the valley floor, where humans and aliens were already beginning to work side by side. Construction had begun on the first human colony, while Zephyrian engineers studied human technology with fascination. Now we find out what we're all capable of when we work together. 6 months later, Emma stood in the main hall of the Forge Academy, watching human and Zephyrian students collaborate on their first joint project. The academy had grown faster than anyone expected, with young beings from both species eager to learn from each other. Crix approached, no longer wearing his original armor but a newer, lighter version that he had helped design himself. He had become her first apprentice and closest friend among the Zephyrians. The new students arrive tomorrow, he reported. 12 humans from the latest colony ship and 15 Zephyrians from the outer clans. Any more outcasts among them? Emma asked with a knowing smile. Several. A human girl who was told she was too small to be an engineer, and a Zephyrian cub who was born with only one arm. Crix grinned.